Welcome to another episode of Inside the Thin Blue Line. I'm Dave Rattigan, across from Dale Lawrence, retired police officer, not his real name, talking about the inside world of police. And today we've got a guest, Kassandra Garcia, a licensed independent clinical social worker with a master's degree in social work from Salem State University right here in Massachusetts, one of the many colleges that I went to back before I finally graduated with my degree after 7 colleges. She works with an emphasis in children, youth, and families, has 13 years of experience in the field of mental health, works with the cops, is going to talk about working with the cops, and obviously if you work with the cops, it's good to have a background in mental health. Because
there you go, Dave. We're not even 57 seconds into the show, and you already threw a shot at me.
We're going to talk about 2 things. We're going to go back to we're going to talk about drug use and crime and cops and social workers, I guess with 3 things. And we're going to talk about a current event, very sad current event, the Gabby Petito case. She was the girlfriend going cross country with her boyfriend or fiance, Brian Laundrie. She disappeared. They found her body. I don't think they've got a positive ID, but they've got a...
No, they have a positive ID. Absolutely, yeah.
Preliminary. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. Dave's been busy all weekend doing comedy and, firing comedians, hiring comedians. Yeah, no, they know it was her. I believe they had her funeral or her wake just the other day.
Oh,
so let's get up to speed here, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know who it was who sent me those notes. Anyway, so all right. So Gabby Petito's body was identified, and she was found. She was found dead. They called it a murder, and
they haven't released a lot of information in regards to the cause of death and the manner of death. I don't know that they're gonna do that because until they get to trial. Key suspect, if you want to call him a suspect, or the person of interest is still out there, so they're not going to release any information until 1, they speak to that individual, Brian Laundrie, or 2, maybe he comes up deceased himself in the Everglades of Florida or wherever the hell he is.
Yeah, we don't know where he is. Am I correct? They still don't know where he is. And we're only going to focus.
Correct. The people who need to know. I mean, his family probably knows, but the FBI, state police, local police, they don't know where he is.
Okay, so we're going to talk about one aspect of the case, which is the criticism of cops in Utah and the way they handled an August 12th confrontation between the couple. And there's a little bit of confusion in that case, and cops have gotten a little bit of criticism for the way they handle it. We're also going to talk about the media and the age-old question of whether or not there's more focus on cases involving attractive blonde girls than in girls of color, which I've heard from my friends basically from a lot of my friends. I've talked to my students about it. It seems to be whether or not it's true, I don't know, but it seems to be an opinion shared by many. You've got an audio for us?
Yeah, I have an audio. This is an audio of the Moab, is that right? M-O-A-B?
Yeah,
Moab.
I pronounce
Utah
Moab.
Police Department on August 12th.
What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood? You want to do me a favor? Let's go ahead and get you to step out of the vehicle, alrighty? You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had this cell phone in her hand, that's why I was pushing her away. Because she wanted me, I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was getting worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys and stuff like that. And I was just trying to, I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't leave her getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
This is a very, very important question. How you answer this question is going to determine what happens next. But the only person who can answer this question is you. Think very hard before you answer the question. Do not quickly answer it. Think very hard. When you slapped him those times, were you attempting to cause him physical pain or physical impairment? Was that what you were attempting to do to him? sound to me like she attempted to injure him.
I am separating the two tonight. Okay?
So it sounds like that cop was doing everything he could to let her take herself off the hook. Is that what it sounds like to you?
Yeah, the basic, if I'm going to break down that call, first of all, every domestic that cops go on is different. The dynamic is different. The story might be the same, husband assaults wife, girlfriend assaults boyfriend, but every person has a different backstory. Now, this story here, the criticism that we're dealing with is this. That police department, Moab, Utah, was criticized or is being criticized currently for not arresting someone at that scene. They had information from a caller, a 911 caller, that a male party was striking a female party, and they fled in a white van with Florida plates. So shortly thereafter, they pulled over a white van with Florida plates, hence Gabby and Brian. Now, when we look at that audio, the officer, first of all, he speaks to the female, and she pretty much admits that there was an argument. She admits that she might have struck him. However, going on to that scene, the officers also had the information that a caller said that the male party was striking her also. So from my experience, now you have it's almost like mutual combatants. Who was the initiator? Who was defending themselves? So what the cops do in that scenario and what they did, they separated both of them. You interview them separately, which they did, and you heard that on the audio. So that what you're trying to do there, Dave, is you're trying to get inconsistencies in their stories. And they didn't seem to be inconsistent, just from what I heard. And then you go to, they also took the keys. Why do you think they took the keys, Dave? They asked Brian Laundrie, can I have the keys to the car?
Okay. Why was that?
Yeah, why was that? I'm asking you. It's a quiz.
The quiz, I would guess, it's because they figure if the two of them get together, they'll take off and they won't spend the night apart. They'll be back together, and you'll be putting two volatile people together.
Yeah, they took the keys in that situation because they didn't want him to drive away. You drive down the street, and he says, the fuck these cops, and just drives down the street. So we typically do that on a domestic. We'll take the keys from the driver. Also, she also talked about how she scratched him. Now, in Massachusetts, if I roll up to a scene like that, and she admits to that, she could be subject to arrest. So they didn't necessarily arrest on that. But the biggest thing for me on this scenario was when she talked about grabbing the wheel of the car.
Yeah.
Now, I've been to domestics where people have been driving down the highway and you pull them over and hey, what's going on? And they're fighting. And the guy or the girl will say, he grabbed the wheel, tried to make it crash.
Yeah.
So just looking at this at face value, there's a lot of probable cause. There's a lot of evidence, either from calling third parties or what both of them are admitting to arrest someone in that situation, but they didn't arrest someone. So the point is, if they had arrested someone, would it, at that point in time, have prevented what ultimately happened to Gabby a couple of weeks later, when she was possibly murdered by Laundrie? So that's the big issue. That's the bone of contention with that police department. I'm not sure. I think if I was the officer on that call, I could have arrested both of them.
Yeah,
you can do a mutual or a dual arrest. They're both. You can't determine who's guilty. You arrest both of them. It's not the preferred response, but it's an option.
Can you PC them both for a night?
No, protective custody is at least in this state, in Massachusetts, is for alcohol or drugs.
Only for alcohol or drugs. Okay.
Not for domestic violence.
Okay. Well, Kassandra, since you're here, I guess the question is, one of the things we've talked about before is sometimes social workers, some people want social workers involved in things like this. Sometimes cops are welcome it, and sometimes they don't welcome it. Could a social worker help in this type of situation?
I would say that I think, depending on the training of the officer, that it could be helpful to either have a partner with them where you could separate both parties and gather the facts individually, or even having someone like a social worker there to assist who is trained in domestic violence and understands that, and, could help in kind of gathering all that information and them then working as a team to figure out how to move forward.
Let me ask you a question. So the officer speaks to the girl, and she's, I scratched him. We were having an argument, and then he says, I put my hands on her because she was, grabbing me. If, as a social worker, if you thought that she was covering for him, how would you approach her to try to elicit more information that the cops couldn't get? What approach might you use?
I mean, I would definitely pull her aside and gather some history about their relationship, about any prior situations that may have happened. I would ask questions about, any dynamics of possible power and control, and just gather some history around their relationship that could possibly help support or, shed light on the situation at hand.
Is this a situation where I know from my limited knowledge of this, statistically, I think late teens through the 20s is when most abuse cases take place. What's a possibility that this was the first time that they fought and it got physical?
That's a tough one. She even said that she has like some OCD issues, and she has some emotional type thing going on. She said that in certain parts of the tape. He's really calm as a cucumber. So he's either a sociopath that he's been through this before and he knows how to play it, or he's just an innocent guy. I think you'd have to, and I'm sure that whoever's investigating this, the FBI and the Utah police, they're doing a victimology on her and seeing is there any abuse in her past? And they're looking at him. Is there any abuse in his past, whether he's a victim of abuse or whether he's the perpetrator of abuse?
Why, if he's a victim of abuse, would that be?
Well, a lot of domestic violence perpetrators and or victims have been abused at some point in their life also.
Right.
But
But he's 23. I would think that...
You would think he'd be able to get over it, Dave?
No. It's not so much that, but I would think that if he was a predator, it would have already shown up.
Absolutely.
He's 23. He's 23 years old. So
you would think.
Okay. So it's really, if he was a victim, that's part of the picture. But the real important thing was there a history for him? And also, was there a history? Had she told anybody about it? Had anyone else witnessed it? Any of their friends?
And none of that's actually being presented yet, which I think it's a good thing.
I don't think it would be.
Yeah, you don't want to, the law enforcement who's investigating this, they don't want to put their hand out there. They don't want anyone to know whatever information they have. Because going forward, if in fact Laundrie did kill her, then they're not going to put all the information out until they make that conclusion. And I'll throw this out there too, Dave. And I've said it before. He's the suspect.
Yeah,
he's the key suspect. Don't let anyone fool you that they're not looking at him. But in reality, a lot of things could have happened there.
Yeah.
She could have slipped and fell. She could have wandered off. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have happened. Let me give you a scenario, Dave. Every once in a while, you date questionable women.
Yep.
She invites you to a weekend getaway in New Hampshire.
Yep.
You go out hiking in the trails. Mm-hmm. She runs ahead of you and jumps off a cliff. Suicide. Let me ask you something, Dave. Who do you think is the suspect here? She didn't jump. They're gonna convince you, Dave, that you pushed her. I'm telling you right now.
Are they really?
Yep. If you think you're going to come back and say she jumped or she fell and tripped, if you think that's going to fly, it ain't going to fly. They're going to look at you as you might have done something, at least initially. So this Laundrie guy,
right? So
I think he's 100% guilty.
You think he's 100% guilty? Let me give you a scenario where he might not be.
Okay.
He's out with this girl. They're doing the cross country thing. They've had some stresses. She's documenting it on social media. He's hiking him by himself. They're 23, so they're not the most mature people in the world, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Maybe they do have a history of violence with each other. And he gets mad and he leaves her. And by the time, and maybe he comes back and she's not there, or maybe he comes back and she's gone, and the stranger comes and the stranger kills her, and now here's the ex-boyfriend who's the only.
He knows he's a suspect, so now he's in hiding.
And now he makes it look a lot worse for himself, because instead of lawyering up and just sticking with his story, he's coming back. He's disappearing. And maybe his parents. I mean, you're hearing various stories about maybe the parents gave him a little help. I mean, yeah, he looks wicked guilty. I get that.
It appears as always guilty. But like I said, as a good law enforcement investigator, you need to run parallel investigations, focus on him and focus on the stranger, and then focus on, even though they say, they said it was a homicide, but you can't trust the information they're putting out.